ReefBum is sponsored by Champion Lighting and Supply, Polo Reef, and Fauna Marin. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. So in this video I wanted to talk about a number of acros that have been doing fantastic in terms of coloration and growth. As you can see, this tank is chock full of corals. This is the 50-gallon frag tank that's plumbed into my peninsula tank. I'm also going to talk about a lot of the frags in the two frag tanks that are plumbed into my 187-gallon display tank. That's the 75-gallon frag tank, and that's the 50-gallon frag tank. I'll also point out a couple of things in the peninsula tank. I planted some frags in that tank a couple of months ago, and that tank is doing fantastic. So with that, let's dive in. All right, let's start with the Jason Fox Flame. For years I had real trouble getting one frag of this coral to grow in my display tank, in any of my display tanks. But now this coral has found its groove in my systems. This is under halides in the 75-gallon frag tank, and boy man, this thing has just been happy. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between now versus years ago, but it has certainly found its groove and doing really well, and I friggin' love this coral. ATL Strawberry Fields. This is a real old school coral. I've had it in my system for very long time. It's very resilient. It's been through a lot of different parameter swings and has always held up very nicely. I love this coral. It's in Aquaculture, Florida. It looks very similar to me to another Aquaculture of Florida, the Worldwide Corals Cookie Monster. Is it the same coral? Perhaps it is, but love them both. These are some frags of the BC Joker 2.0, a very unique bonsai-like type of coral. It's just deep purple with bright yellow greenish neon tips. I gotta say, it's one of my favorite acros. It grows really fast. I started to lose the mother colony that I had in my peninsula tank, fragged up that mother colony and saved some pieces, and given the fast growth rate, it rebounded very nicely, and it's doing quite well under halides, but I also have it under LEDs. This is a very large frag of the ACI Pink Panther. I've got several mini colonies of this coral. I got a frag from Chris Meckley at ACI Aquaculture, a good sized frag. So I've had it in my frag tanks for a very long time. It's never been in any of my display tanks, but I did just put a nice big chunk of it in my peninsula tank, so I'm excited to see that grow out in the display tank. But man, this thing is so freaking red and pink in terms of the coral lights and the branches, that it's just it oozes color. And I love the formation of the branches. It's almost kind of like a table-like type of acropora, but really excited to have a whole bunch of this stuff now in my systems. So certainly a favorite of mine. This is a huge chunk frag mini colony. Let's call it a mini colony. Upscales microcladus. I love this coral. It's got pink polyps. It's got the yellow coral lights, branches, what have you. So it's really a striking color combination, and it does really well in terms of the growth and holding its color. So it's another one that I've had in my systems for a very long time, but really cool coral. This is a group shot of the BC Hyperberry Strawberry Shortcake, one of the most awesome looking strawberry shortcakes that I've ever come across. I got this directly from Adam at Battle Corals a number of years ago. This is another piece that I almost lost, but I saved it, fragged up a couple of pieces of it, and it's just been thriving under halides for me. But it's also another piece that has done well for me under the LEDs, the GHL Mitras. I really do love bonsais, and I'm so psyched to have this old school Garf bonsai. I acquired a frag of it a long time ago, and I started growing it out in my 187 gallon display tank, but then when I rebooted that, it came, I put that frag into my one of my frag tanks, and as you can see, I've got a few chunky pieces of it now. It's cool, man. I love the contrast colors in terms of the green polyps and the deep purple branches. So this is another one that's been under halides for a long time, but I also put a big frag of it in my peninsula tank under LEDs, and that is also shining under that light spectrum. This is a pair of Jake Adams Toxic Florida. Picked up a frag from Chris Meckley at ACI. I've got a nice chunky frag in the peninsula tank, so that original frag is now multiplied into these two larger frags, as well as the other frag I've got in my peninsula tank. So it's a fast grower, and man, you got to put the sunglasses on because this freaking thing is bright. It's a stunner. ACI Crimson, obviously another piece that I got from Chris at ACI. Tabling acro, beautiful red, pink in this acropora. Again, I got a single frag from Chris, but it's just blossomed into this huge mini colony. That's kind of an oxymoron, a huge mini colony. It's a nice little mini colony here, but I've got several more chunks, so it's been thriving in my systems, and I love the, I guess you would say there's white polyps in there dancing around. So really, really cool coral, and any kind of tabling, reddish, pinkish acro is something I'm going to be a big, big fan of. Continuing on the theme of ACI corals, this is the ACI Pink Spathulata. This coral, I almost lost the mother colony that I had in the peninsula tank, and went through a few different transformations. You know, it was pink, the coralites were pink with the green polyps. Then it kind of like turned very shaggy, and the green really stood out with the polyps. So, I almost did lose the colony. I had to frag it up, and this is a chunk of it that's under halides, and the pink is re-emerging. I put another frag of it back into the peninsula tank, and that is holding its pink color really well. So it's odd. I don't know exactly what has caused the change in coloration. The par values seem to be similar in terms of when that coral was pink versus when it was green, so I don't think it was related to the par, but who knows? There could be a lot of different variables in play with this coral, but gotta love the Spathulata. They're a tough coral to keep, so it has been a challenge under certain conditions to keep it happy, but right now it's looking good. This is a huge piece of the BC Cream City Pinky. I grew a big colony. I grew a frag into a nice sized colony in one of my frag tanks, and then I started losing that piece. So I was able to save a little chunk of it. Now it's just freaking thriving, and I've got several chunks of it. I really love it. I mean, it's just it's bright pink, red. It's also got the white polyps that are dancing around in there. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece, and I'm looking forward to putting a big chunk of it, maybe this one, into the 187 gallon display tank. I'm going to have a lot of nice big starter chunky frags to put into that display tank, so I'm looking forward to that. This is another piece that I got from Chris Meckley at ACI, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It looks a lot to me like the Tyree Pink Lemonade, but Chris told me that it is a different coral, but it has grown a ton for me. The polyp extension is fantastic. I love the contrast in terms of the pink polyps and the yellow tips and coral lights. So this will definitely be going into the display tank. This is another coral that I've had in my system for a very long time, the BC Aquatic Man table. You know, when I was selling corals online, I wasn't the most popular seller, best seller, which surprises me because it's got just so many cool colors. There's a lot going on with this coral. There's if you look close enough, there's like a rainbow of colors happening. More red than anything, but more orangey. But there is kind of like that that hint of green in there. So again, it's a table, and I love tables, and it's a one of my favorites, I'd have to say. This is a very, very large frag mini colony of the $500 E-Flow. I got this coral from Dong a long time ago. It's been sitting in my frag tank. This is a coral that I featured in my video in terms of losing color then gaining color back. So this is sort of like my canary in the coal mine. When my phosphates get really low, and this coral will start losing its color, and I'll know that. So this is a good indicator coral for me in terms of phosphate levels in my system. But it's been a long time since I've had an E-Flow in one of my reef tanks, and I think I'm going to put this in the 187-gallon display tanks. It's an old school classic. You don't see a lot of I think E-Flows these days in display tanks, and I already got a nice spot picked out for it, so looking forward to getting it in there. These are a couple of big frags of the Reef Gen Blueberry Fantasy. It looks very similar to Peng's Blue Monster, which I also have, but these I don't know if they grow faster than the Peng's Blue Monster, but I do love blue corals, and these are very very blue. There's a lot of green in there as well, but gorgeous corals. I want to say they're granulosas, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. They're definitely lookers though. They're the type of coral that I like in terms of putting a lot of solid looking corals that pop into my reef tanks, and these certainly do the job. This is the Gigs Matra Millie, and it is fast becoming one of my favorite Millies. It's the hairiest Millie that I have. You can see it's got those orange and red coralites in there with the serious green polyps waving in the current. It's a fast grower, but man, can't wait to see this thing grow up in a huge colony. ACI Cherry Pie Millie. This was another one I almost lost. I had a big colony of it in my peninsula tank. This is another huge chunk of it that's now growing in my peninsula tank and doing very well. I did save a couple of other chunky frags that are sitting in the frag tank, but geez, a bright red pink Millie. You can't get any better than that. I do love the Mothra Millie, but give me all those pink and red Millies and I'm a happy camper. This is the Worldwide Corals Blueberry Field. This is a sick bonsai. I have to say this is one of my favorite bonsais that I've ever had. It just frickin' pops. This is under LEDs. I've got a bunch of chunky frags here in the frag tank, and I've also got a nice big frag of it growing in the peninsula tank. I had a huge colony of it in the peninsula tank, so when I broke down that redid that tank, took a bunch of chunks out, put it in the frag tank, doing really well. It can handle lower par than some of the other acros, so I think it's pretty happy getting 300 to 350 par versus the higher par values that I have at the top of my reef tank and the peninsula tank, which are like approach about 500 par. So yeah, if you're looking for a bonsai that is a real eye catcher, then this is the one. Reef Raft Unknown Pink Millie Table. I think I got this, no, I did get this piece originally from Dong a long time ago, and I don't know, this thing is just a gorgeous pink Millie. It's got green highlights. It grows really fast. This is another piece that I have in the peninsula tank that's growing out. I've got a bunch of Millies in that peninsula tank, so This is a top shelf Millie in my book. Paletta pink tip. I didn't acquire this this coral until a couple of years ago, and I just don't understand why I didn't get a hold of it sooner. It's a fast grower. It's got beautiful coloration, a lot of different contrasting colors going on there. You know, obviously the pink, purplish. It's got the bright, you know, polyps on it. So this is certainly one of my favorites now in my system in terms of aquapora. It can do better. You know, I think it does fine in the 300 to 350 par range. So it's an acro that's been thriving in my systems for a while now, and I certainly glad I got it. This is another incredibly beautiful strawberry shortcake, the Unique Corals original strawberry shortcake. It's just kick-ass. Great contrast in terms of the bright red polyps, the green branches. So this is always another coral that catches people's attentions in my tank. So I think these are dynamite corals. This is one of those under the radar acros, the Sanjays, leprechauns, beard. I think it's a really cool tabling acro. Gets some great polyp extensions. Got a lot of purple, green polyps. It's a you know, fast grower, so I like to stick it in my display tanks because it could turn into a real showpiece. But I think it's an underrated acro for sure. This is another one of my favorites, the Milka Stylo. Gorgeous, gorgeous purple. It's a centerpiece coral, and it's not an expensive coral, which is great. And I think it's also a good coral for people that have not had a lot of experience with hard stony corals to try it out, to kind of test the waters to see how you do. But man, just talk about a coral that is easy to spot across from the room. That's the Milka Stylo. This is like a neon yellow stunner, the TCK Pikachu, I believe is what it's called. I had a nice colony of this growing in my peninsula tank, and when I redid that tank, took out a few chunks of it, put another frag back into the peninsula tank, but these are a couple of the remaining chunks that I have growing out in my my frag tank. You know, I do like to have contrasting colored corals in my display tank. So you know, yellow is a pretty important part of the color spectrum. So you know, I like to have the representation for yellows, greens, blues, purples, oranges, reds, you name it. But this is a beautiful, beautifully colored coral. Well, speaking of beautifully colored corals, this is probably my favorite coral, the Oregon Blue Tort. So freaking blue. I don't know any other acro that's as blue as this this coral. It's been in the hobby for a super long time, but pretty much near the top of my list, if not at the top of my list in terms of acros. So I think it's a must-have. This is a nice chunk of the Tyree Purple Monster. I've had the coral for a super long time. I did lose the mother colony a while back, a few months ago, but I've got plenty of other frags and chunks of this coral in my two systems, so it's nice to have the backup. But I said the Oregon Blue Tort was at or near the top of my list. This would be the other coral that would be at or near the top of my list. Just it's striking. It's really hard to come by, but this is the OG Tyree Purple Monster, so very psyched to still have it. Another solid purple colored coral that I have that I just love is this BC Poor Man's Battle Stag. I got it from Adam a long time ago, but I've had it for a good number of years, and this is another coral that I like to have in my display tank simply because it's a solid purple, and it provides that contrast in color versus other corals that I have. So you know, putting this next to a fluorescent green coral or a bright red coral or you know, an Oregon Blue Tort, just it really makes it stand out. Everything just pops. So that's kind of what I dig. Palmer's Blue Millie. There really are not a lot of blue millies out there. This is an old school coral that's been in the hobby for a real long time. This is another one that's really hard to find, but I've had this one in my possession for a long time, a number of years, and it's definitely one of the tougher millies to keep. It can be a little finicky, but it's just gorgeous blue, and once it's happy, it can get going growth-wise pretty quickly. The Cali Tort. I used to have a ton of Cali Tort in my 187-gallon display tank. I think the colony that I had grown out in that tank was 18 to 20 inches across. Maybe it was bigger, but I don't have a lot left anymore. I do have a frag growing in the Peninsula tank. I'll put a frag, maybe this frag, into the 187-gallon display tank. You know, again, this is a beautifully, this is a solid blue-purple type of coral that I've had for years and years and years in my systems, and it's one of my favorites, and it's something that I'll continue to put in my display tanks. I like it that much. Tyree Red Dragon. This is another really old school coral, and back in the day when it first entered the hobby, it certainly fetched a high price, but now you can pick up frags of this thing on the cheap. But it's another one that if you're looking for a solid pink coral, this is a great choice. Some people do report them to be a little finicky. They are smooth skin corals, but I've always had a lot of success with these things, and they just freaking grow like weeds. This is another kick-ass coral, the ACI Light Brite. I got a frag of this from Chris a number of years ago. Grown like a weed for me in my systems. Looks similar to a Jason Fox Flame with the bright yellow tips, but it also has these cool highlights in the coral lights, the yellow highlights and the coral lights. So just a fantastic coral. It's been pretty hardy for me as well. Well, folks, that's going to do it for this video. I'm sure I missed a few corals that deserved mention, but that's a pretty comprehensive list. So that'll do it for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Until next time, be safe and be well. Later.